Welcome back. I'm Pat, that Halloween movie collector, and I'm back with another What If. This time we're doing What If for Halloween Kills. Yes, the very, well, actually, Ends was divisive too, but Kills was divisive as well. But Kills, truth be told, had a lot of great stuff, like the flashback scenes, some great kills if you like that stuff. Social commentary we all could have totally did without. And of course, the tagline, Evil Dies Tonight. Lord, we knows we could have done without that. But hey, overall, if you took, like I've told everybody, if you take the hospital stuff out, it's a great movie. But you know what? Let's do this. Let's do our what if for Halloween Kills, because maybe some of the suggestions that my what if suggestions might have made it better, and let me know some of your ideas that might have made it better. So let's do this. Halloween Kills, what if? So my number one. Now, one of the problems a lot of people had with Kills, myself included, was the how they brought back the OG characters, basically just for fan service, and really just unceremoniously just knocked them all off. And you didn't get to see too much of a backstory of them. They didn't have to. They didn't really develop as characters. They were just basically there for fan service. So my number one, what if there were no OG characters from '78 and Halloween Kills? If you think about it, wouldn't have changed the storyline one bit. Albeit, okay, you could have introduced Lonnie Elam simply because you already introduced his son, Cameron Elam, in 2018. And Lonnie was the only one in Kills I enjoyed, to be honest with you. No offense to Anthony Michael Hall, great actor, been in some of my favorite films, but his character, the way they gave it to him, and it wasn't his fault, he was just doing what he was told, kind of sucked. Thought it would have been a better uh, Tommy Doyle than what we got. But oh well. But yeah, Lonnie could have been there simply because he was already introduced in 2018. So it really wasn't fan service. It was more about obviously you're gonna have Cameron in this film, and his father takes care of him, so he could be introduced, and all that could have played out the way it was. But Marion, it was basically fan service, especially with that shitty "oh, this is for Dr. Loomis," which really cringes everybody. Lindsay, oh, the only thing that was good about Lindsay in this film was the chase scene. That's all. And they could have did something else with a different character. They didn't need her to be the one being chased. So yeah, unceremonious. Didn't really need her. And the biggest one is Brackett. I mean, you brought Sheriff Brackett back. Now he has lost his daughter 40 years ago, and you just make him. And this wasn't a bad idea, making him the head of security or security guard at the hospital. Okay, he's going to be in his 80s. I get that, but to just shitty dialogue. You know, everyone's entitled to one good scare. He said that to Lori. Why would he say it to Michael? And then he's just unceremoniously just killed off. So that was my number one. What if none of the original characters were there? Didn't need them. Didn't serve any purpose. Could have been totally done away with. My number two. Most of the people's problems with this film have take place at the hospital. Now, how on earth anybody would mistake Mr. Tivoli from Michael Myers is beyond me, because people have seen him. Everybody knows that he's a thin, fit type person in his 60s. He's 60 at this point. And this guy is this short little heavy-set troll running around. How do you mistake the two? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Just look at him and look at his body type and think, okay, how is this guy going around fucking people up and killing them? Completely ridiculous. So, my number two is to make the situation at the hospital a little bit more believable and a little bit more digestible. What if the patient that they were mistaking for Myers was the patient that Lumpy and his father almost hit when they were driving the Bronco in 2018? I don't know the actor's name, and I don't even know the patient's name. Like, he was just a character. But he could have fit the build of Myers. Face, size, everything. That would have made it a little bit more palatable to believe all that nonsense that took place in the hospital. No, and he could have just been just as messed up in the head like Tivoli was, and even it could have played out the same way where he was chased and whatever. But that would have made it a lot more believable than like this little Danny DeVito penguin running around, and you're mistaking this for like this crazy like killer. Seriously? No, didn't buy it. But he could have played it off, and he would have been a little bit more believable. My number three, and as you see, there's gonna be a lot of what ifs at the hospital, because that was the part that really gets most people upset because of what happened at the hospital. That was a little far-fetched and unnecessary. So my number three is, what if there was no mob at the hospital? Why did they swarm the hospital? Michael wasn't there. They weren't going to see Laurie Strode. So what was the necessity to have this huge giant mob at the hospital? Why didn't they mob outside the Myers house like they did in Halloween 2? Why didn't they mob outside the police station saying, well, what the hell are you guys doing about this? This guy's back 40 years later and he's killing people. What was the purpose of mobbing at the hospital? Didn't understand that. And that's one of my biggest... Actually, probably should have had this at my number 10. I try to save my number 10 for the biggest ones, but that is like the biggest one. It was absolutely not necessary to have a mob at the hospital. You know? If Michael was brought there, okay. Like if for some reason, sort of like in the OG Halloween, where I'm sure he was brought to a hospital, well, the 2018 events rather, where you find out that he was captured and put away. Okay, I can see that, but he's not at the hospital. They don't, and Tivoli shows up later, so it's not like they tailed him there. The mob was already there when Tivoli walked in. Didn't make sense. Didn't need the mob. And my number 4, this would have played out a little bit better, because I do like the dialogue with Laurie and Hawkins in the hospital where they're rekindling and reminiscing. I do like that. That's cool, because they lost all that time in between where maybe something could have happened between them. And then when she finds out that Michael's still alive and she's trying to get away, she's going a little ape shit and right before all the mob shit hits. What if Laurie didn't know Michael survived? What if she didn't know through the whole film? Right? Because you've got to remember, in Halloween 2, if you're watching Halloween 2, not that Halloween 2 is canon in this timeline, she was on her guard and she was suspicious of everything. She knew, something was going to happen and he was going to come after her. What if, while this stuff at the hospital was going on, she was relaxed? Because now she's under the impression he's dead. Remember, she's like, we did it. And she tells Hawkins, and he's like, it's about time. What if she was relaxed until the very end and the shit hit the fan? I thought that would have played out a little bit better, because now you see her going from this obsessed, damaged person, and then now the second movie, she's in the hospital. She thinks that she killed him, and she's all relaxed. Now you get to see how that plays out. My number 5, now this is just a personal thing of me that I always thought would be cool, because you never see it. It's always the aftermath. So my number 5 is, what if you saw Michael displaying the bodies in the park? Right? Because in the first movie, he displayed his bodies. Part 2, he displayed his bodies. You kind of lost that with some of the other sequels in the 80s, where he didn't display them as cool as you thought, because it was because he was like a child in the head. It was inhuman, like an animal. Like when an animal, if you have outdoor cats or dogs, or like usually outdoor cats, what do? They tend to kill something like a mouse or something, and they leave it outside for you to find because it's a trophy. They want to show you their kill. So how cool would it have been to see him setting that all up? You never see it, right? Or maybe he's setting it up and they show up there and see him setting it up. That would have been cool, and that could have been a cool little showdown when Tommy shows up, and Lonnie and Allison and Cameron, and they see him setting up all these bodies. That would have been kind of cool. Okay, my number 6. Now this plays into, if you guys follow along the Halloween 2018 book club that we do here, where we read books. So in 2018's novelization, because I'm assuming at that point when they did the novelization in 2018, I don't believe they announced the other 2 films until it blew up in the box office. So if you read the 2018 novelization, it doesn't mention this in the movie. It's brought up. Somebody does ask, what happened to the Myers house? And they say in the novelization that it was torn down and it was made into a park. So here, what if the Myers house was gone and it was a park? Like it said in 2018, what if there was no Myers house? Didn't have to be standing. You would think that after all the shit that happened in 78, they would have tore the son of a bitch down, because that tends to happen these days. When there's a tragedy at a school, a tragedy at home, they tend to tear it down because they don't want a memory of it. They don't want it sitting there. So now it could have been a cool visual of Michael coming back and seeing his house is gone, and realizing that there's no sort of like home away from home, but there's no home base for him to go to. And this is where he starts thinking about where he could go. And you got to remember, now he's reintroduced to Laurie Strode in 2018, even though it's not supposed to be about Laurie. But look what she tried to do to him. So of course he's going to be fucking pissed and want to kill her. And then this is where he starts to travel to the hospital, because he's not stupid. He's going to assume that's where she went. And so we sort of could have saw his travels, much like we did in 81, on the way to the hospital. In 81, Halloween 2. My number 7 sort of it brings you back to the Myers house too, because you remember the scene where Lonnie takes Allison and Cameron, because he figures out, look, this is what he does. He kills, he creeps, he kills, he goes home. So he was smart enough to say, hey, let's go check out the Myers house. But why didn't the Haddonfield Police Department think of that? I mean, Brackett and Loomis went there in the first one to check it out. In part 2, Halloween 2, which is the same night, the police were there because the mob was out there, throwing shit at the house because they were pissed about what happened. Why wouldn't somebody go there? So what if Lonnie brought the police department, Haddonfield Police Department, to the house? Well, they should have been, because they should think, okay, he's on the loose. Where would he go? Like he did back 40 years ago. Where'd he go? He went to his fucking house. And there's 2 people living there now, Big John and Little John. Why wouldn't a police car have been parked outside, or sent a squad to hang out there to see if he shows up? That just plays into Sheriff Barker being a completely useless character, a completely useless sheriff, because Hawkins probably would have thought of that if he was sheriff, because he was sharp and he was invested in this. Barker was a buffoon. If you took him out of all 3 of these fucking movies, nothing would have changed, because he was a buffoon. So what if Lonnie said, hey, look, let's go. This is where I can guarantee you this is where he is. And that's, of course, when they go there, he's there. And Lonnie gets killed, and the rest of it plays out. My number 8. Another scene takes place at the Myers house. What if Michael killed Allison? Right? She killed Cameron. Michael threw her down the steps, screwed up her leg, or ankle, or whatever. I think her ankle broke or whatever. And Karen saves her at the last second. But what if Karen wasn't there? I mean, come on. What if, because there was really, it could have played out where Allison was dead. Why not? Halloween Ends could have had a totally different storyline, which probably most people would have appreciated. But why not? She didn't really need to live. I mean, is she going to be the face of the franchise going forward? No, because this was just a trilogy. So, would have been pretty interesting, and seeing Karen show up and see the aftermath of her daughter laying there dead. And my number 9 is the flip side of that. What if Karen survived? All right, and in this scenario, Allison doesn't necessarily have to be dead. Karen could have saved her at the last minute, just like she did in the film. And everything played out, but at the end, that stupid scene at the end where all of a sudden she has psychic abilities. How was she seeing the young Michael up in his bedroom? Judith's bedroom, rather. What is that all about? What possessed her to see that, and what possessed her to go inside and look out that window? Because that whole storyline was dropped and ends. It wasn't like the house was haunted and you stand in that spot, you see what other people see, or you see what Michael saw. There was no reason for her to go up there. So it would have been cool, because same thing would have played out. You could have watched all 3 of them try to heal now. Because in Ends, you would have thought Laurie would have been even worse than she was in 2018 because of the shit that happened. Because he's still alive. He killed her daughter. And then she's like happy homemaker making pies. It ends. What? Don't understand the logic there. And my number 10 biggest what if. Now this is simply fan service, simply because the original Halloween is my favorite film. I went apeshit when I saw this in the theater, and they flashed back to 78 and how well they did it. So what if this entire movie was a flashback? Why not? They could have sprung that on us and had this in the middle to see how all this played out leading up to the events of 2018, and then giving us a different film for Halloween Ends and ended it that way. Because, look, I saw Halloween Ends, and I'll be doing my Halloween Ends What If, and I've given reviews, I've given my opinion on it. I don't hate that movie. I was invested in the Corey character because I enjoyed it, but I did not enjoy it as a Halloween film. It would have been cool where you would have saw this person who was sort of infected with Myers' mentality, but he didn't have to meet him. It could have just been a completely different movie. Now, and this was supposed to be, everything was supposed to take place on the same night. That was the original concept. And if you did a whole flashback where you saw, like, say, in the mind of Hawkins, which is where the flashback is going because he's telling the story, we could have had a little bit more Hawkins and seen how everything built up to 2018, saw the downfall of Laurie's mania over those years, and then came to ends, and we could have ended it there, and that would have made sense because now we would have did it all on one night, just like Halloween 1 in 78 and Halloween 2 in 81. That would have played out better because they did an amazing job, and it would have been, obviously we know it was, they said for budgetary reasons, it would have just cost too much money. I get it, but you know what? Come on, stop being fucking cheap. For like what was it? I forget what the original budget was for Halloween 2018. What was it? 15, 20 million maybe? You made 256 million. You know what? Open your fucking pockets and make an amazing movie. Stop being cheap, you fucks. That's the problem with Hollywood. You make all this money, but you don't want to spend it. So I think they could have made an amazing flashback movie that was set in 70. It didn't have to be all in 78. It could have been 78 and moved through certain years and certain events. Would have been great. So, yeah. That would have been amazing. So there you go. That is my what ifs for Halloween Kills. And I'm sure people have a lot because a lot of people have problems with this film. And I'm sure when I get to Halloween Ends, there's going to be a lot of what ifs. And, but it's just fun. This simple exercise to just sit there and think back. Okay, what if they did this differently? What if they didn't do that? How would it have changed? Would it have changed for the better? I mean, majority, I'm trying to think of things that are going to make it a little bit better because why would I want to make it worse, right? So do me a favor. Throw some what ifs for Halloween Kills in the comments below and let me know. Be curious to hear some what ifs. Let me know if you thought of any of the ones I did. And let me hear yours because I've been getting some good ones from people that I'm like, shit, I didn't even think of that. That would have worked out perfectly. And while you're doing that, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Helps people find this channel. We've made it over the hump of 1,000 subscribers as of this recording. I think we're at 1,020. So if you haven't checked out or entered my 1031 can't even speak today. My 1031 subscribers giveaway, make sure you do. There's a link to a video here that tells you how to join. Well, enter, I should say, rather. And which is basically just subscribe to the channel and a few other small things. You could win one of these autographed Dr. Chalice figures autographed by Tom Atkins. And when you can decide which one you want. You can want the one that's signed in orange ink or the one that's signed in green ink. So it'll be raffled off once we hit the 1031 mark, which as of this recording, I'm hoping will be this week because it's creeping up. So basically, the first thing to do to enter is hit that subscribe button. Don't cost nothing. And hopefully check out the rest of the channel. A lot of cool stuff here. We do horror podcasts. We do watch-alongs. There's a lot of Halloween stuff. If you're here specifically for Halloween, there's tons of it. Just look behind me. And horror movies, music, Kiss, you name it. It's all here. Just walk around on the channel and you're bound to step in some shit. So just wipe off your shoe and just keep looking. Okay? But until next time, I will catch you for my final what if for the Halloween franchise next week for my what if for Halloween Ends. And until then, I'll talk to you soon.